Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, all. This is Red O'Laughlin. We're on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and I think I have the wrong background for this show, so I'll fix that here shortly. Regardless, today I'm honored with a friend. I've interviewed him several times in the past, Doug Lawrence. He's an international speaker and author, 25-year veteran of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Right now, he helps others transition through PTSD, military transition into civilian life. So let me go ahead and welcome Doug Lawrence. Please join us. Hey,
hello. It's been a long time since we've had the opportunity to chat.
It has been. And why don't we start with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police? 25 years. How did you get into that program?
The desire, or I will call it the desire, to join the Royal Canadian Mounted Police came from as I was growing up on a farm in Saskatchewan, the RCMP, when they were doing their rural community patrols in the evenings and that, sometimes during the day on weekends and that, would always stop in at our farm, and they would chat and get into conversations and stuff. And I remember one particular time, one of the police officers asked me if I had a place that I went target shooting. And the next thing I know, we're down at this location on the farm where I would go with my rifle and practice target shooting. And he hauled out his service revolver and said, "Okay, see those cans over there, aim for those, and let's see how good you are at shooting." And that was the bug that sort of caught me going, and I went through and graduated from high school, and then within a year, maybe 2 years most, I ended up being accepted into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and from there, my career of 25 years, give or take a bit of change, my career evolved, and that was where I also, at a certain period of time in my career, I ended up with post-traumatic stress as a result of the trauma and that I was exposed to.
Okay, let me back you up just a little bit. I want to get into that topic a lot. But, okay, so you're riding a horse, and it could be snowing. It could be what? You're just out in the elements? Tell me about that.
No horse. No. The horses were gone in about the late 60s, I think it was, because I went through training in 1974, and we had no horses. But so all our patrols and that would be done in vehicles. In some of the places we were in, like in the high Arctic, you'd be doing your patrols in a pickup truck. No horses.
Okay, so I'm disillusioned. I thought you were out there mounting on a horse and it's snowing and you're doing your job, taking care of people. I know you've had some interesting duties while there with the RCMP. And I know one of them we're going to talk about is a bit traumatic, but tell me about some of the better things that happened out there that you can smile about in your memory.
The the quality of life as it relates to the family was, I think, probably one of the memories that I know that it's one of the memories that I would hang on to for forever. We did so much as a family, and I remember being in Hall Beach in the Eastern Arctic, and I was the only police officer there in this small community of roughly 500 people, and we used to take off on a weekend. We'd hook the snowmobile to the sled, and away we'd go out on the land, as they called it, and we'd spend time together as a family. And it was so rewarding to be able to have that opportunity to do that, especially in a place where, we were in a community of 480 Inuit and only about 20 white people, which predominantly were teachers. And that was, the sort of the environment that we were in. So being able to hang on to that as a memory is really important to me.
Interesting. But you also have a particularly bad memory, which precipitated a lot of things, and you've written about and you've talked about it on other shows. I think it's germane today because it's part of the reason I believe that you wrote your latest book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience, and then we can lead into your authoring.
So I was stationed in a place in northern British Columbia, and we were putting together a men's hockey team. We had this young 16-year-old boy that had skated with us as we were getting a team organized. We were going to go down the highway 60 or 80 kilometers, and we were going to play the neighboring community and that. And so anyhow, long story short, the young lad made the men's hockey team, and he was quite proud, and as were the rest of us, because of his effort that he put in. And, he was very, very focused on what it is that he wanted to be able to do. And so as a result of that, he went home to tell his parents that, the good news about him making the hockey team. And he gets home, and of course they've been drinking for quite a period of time, and talking to their son about his accomplishments was not even on their radar screen. And as a result of that, he went into the bedroom in the house and found a rifle and took his own life. And I, being one of two police officers and sort of low man on the totem pole, we'll call it, I ended up having to investigate his sudden death. And then on top of it all, I had to transport his body to the closest morgue, which was about 8 hours away by vehicle, minus 40 weather, and had to transport the body and then turn around and come back. The interesting part of the story was my soon-to-be wife ended up being, she got the short straw, and ended up being volunteered to go with me because they didn't want me to travel in the middle of the winter without any backup. So she got blessed, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words, to go with me on the trip going down and coming back. And it gave her an opportunity to see what if she were to marry a police officer such as myself in a small rural community, that this is what you would expect was going to happen, and that you may get volunteered for active duty at some particular time point.
At what point in your 25-year career did this event happen?
I had about 5 years service.
Oh, wow. So that was very early.
Yeah.
Okay. So your fiance did marry you after that event?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, she did. Yes, we ended up getting engaged probably in the winter time, maybe a bit before that. But we ended up getting engaged, and we got married the following year. So yeah, and it was interesting how I came to get connected with her. Was her aunt and uncle lived in this community, and I had become good friends with them, and I ended up over one night over at their place having dinner and a few drinks and stuff, and they had a family photo album, and they had it setting out, and I said, "Do you mind if I take a look?" And they said, "Sure, go ahead." So I'm flipping through, and there was a picture of Deborah, and I went, "Who's this?" And they said, "That's our niece." And I went, "Get her up here." And so shortly after that, she ended up coming up, and from there, what would be the fairy godmother type story took over from a lot of other things, and we had a tumultuous early relationship that we kind of came around to realize that we were soulmates for each other, and that was where things went. And I should probably mention, I always referred to Deborah as my photo album bride.
Let me start off here. We're in the corner bookstore. So you wrote a book a while back called The Gift of Mentoring, and it's available on Amazon. Tell us a little bit about why did you decide to become an author, and tell us a little bit about that process of writing that book.
So the gift of mentoring was basically came as a result of one of my friends, one of my colleagues that I went through police training with, the RCMP training. He ended up he would do motivational messages every morning for his children, and as he started to build this repertoire of messages, some people came to him and said, you should take all of those messages and turn them into a book. And so he did. And he and I were talking one day, and he said, all those blog articles that you've got that's out there, why don't you think about consolidating all of them into a book? And you never know, if nothing else, you'll have created a repository of information about mentoring that may not exist anywhere else. And so as a result of that, I worked with a ghostwriter to pull all this content together, and we ended up in 2014, the book was published. We self-published it, and I did it with the intent, and this is important to me, I did it with the intent that I wasn't going to make any money. I wanted to get the message out there about how important the gift of mentoring actually was, and that I felt that even if only one person bought the book, that's one more than what was there before. And if it helped people understand mentoring and how it can benefit the person and the organization, then it was a success.
Absolutely. I think a lot of authors, brand new authors, expect to make a lot of money with their books. They have this preset mindset that says, okay, I'm writing this book, I want to share it with everybody, I'm going to make a lot of money. And in reality, that doesn't happen. You will find people who sell 1,000 books, several thousand books, 1,000 books a year. I think there's one romance author here in Houston. She generally sells somewhere, I know she makes 4 or 5 figures a month. At least that was still before COVID, because we were talking at an author meeting. But that's the rarity. You need a following. You need a lot of content out there. You need content that people want. A lot of parts there. But I like the idea that you took your blogs and put those together. I did a similar thing with Alzheimer's. I'd written a bunch and decided, there's a lot of good value there. Let's just put that in the book and get it out. Because sometimes books happen because we have a lot of content that's already published. We just put it together. But your latest book, the one you came out with, the one I really want to talk about today, is You Are Not Alone. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So You Are Not Alone came to be in much the same fashion as The Gift of Mentoring, where it was some colleagues of mine were making trips back and forth to the hospital and were very much plugged into what I was doing in the mentoring space. And it was they that suggested you need to write a book about mentoring and mental health and all of that stuff. And a little bit later on in my story, I ended up incorporating or bringing grief into the picture as well. But for the most part, the book and how it got started or got the traction that it did was primarily because of the suggestion of my colleagues who said, you need to write a book. And so I started to do some research and the book evolved from that. It became a Amazon #1 bestseller and a bronze medal of the Global Book Awards. And as a result of that, it propelled me into international best-selling author status. So, and all of those were things that weren't part of the plan at the beginning. It just they evolved or they became part of the plan, and it's worked out quite nicely. And going back to our conversation about making money, I've been able to sell groups or blocks of books, and a large part of that comes from maybe speaking at a workshop or something like that. And I know I did one for the nursing program here in Regina, and I think I sold 20 or 25 books. And I'd never got that experience before with The Gift of Mentoring, but I've had that happen now with You Are Not Alone a couple times. And I think it's because of the relevancy of the book itself.
You touched on a topic that we are really never prepared to enter into, and that's grieving. It happens periodically because of things, but we're not taught that in school. It's not a topic that we talk about around the house. You have to experience it firsthand in order to understand it. It's a difficult topic, and I know you have a lot of experience with that. Tell us a little bit about grieving and what options people might have.
So I lost my wife, Deborah, in February of 2021, and I had experienced grief when my mom passed away in 2014, I think it was, thereabouts. And so I was exposed to grief, and I was able to, or seemed to be able to, navigate through it with a little bit of preparation on my part for dealing with different situations that would come up. But I had no idea what it was going to be like to lose my partner for life to cancer. I had no idea the impact that was going to have. I've experienced, a number of different things. Not being able to go to a family event where there was large groups of people because it was too overwhelming. Not being able to go to the grocery store because there was, too many people to have to navigate and deal with. And then, the aspect of weekends. Weekends are the time when you experience the most loneliness. And it's, it got to a point where I hated weekends because that meant that was probably 2 days I was by myself, and I didn't know what to do or how to go about dealing with some of that. So there was always those things that, that you were dealing with. And what I've ended up not having to do, but what's evolved for me is that I have become very active in bereavement, grief support for other people, so that we can help them navigate through and make it part of their healing journey. And speaking of the healing journey, what's worked great for me, which has been a godsend, has been the opportunity to share and tell my story on shows such as this one here, where it has become very therapeutic for me to be able to do so.
Okay, so you have grieving, which is in itself its own world, but you also have PTSD, which also happens to be its own world, and the solution to both are not the same, but you are helping people in both areas. And part of the book on that you just wrote, the You Are Not Alone, deals a little bit with that PTSD aspect too. So tell us a little bit about the PTSD and what your experience was there, and how you overcame that.
So my experience with that came from kind of, the story I shared about the young lad who took his own life, and for me, it was having to deal with that loss. So there was some grieving that would take place there, albeit not directly related to me as a family member or anything like that. So there was that particular time, and there were, as you can well imagine, in a policing world, there was all kinds of different events that would take place that would carry with them quite a bit of trauma that I would have to figure out how I was going to deal with it. And my initial solution, my coping mechanism, was a bottle of Scotch whiskey, and I would I'd come home from having dealt with, say, the young lad taking his own life. I went back to my trailer that I lived in, and in one of the cupboards, that became my liquor cabinet. And so I would go to the liquor cabinet and open the door, take a bottle of Scotch whiskey out, take the cap off, throw the cap in the garbage, and I would sit down and I would drink the bottle until it was gone, thinking that that was the best coping mechanism that I could come up with. And to be truthfully honest, it was probably one of the worst things that I could have done. Fortunately, it didn't lead to suicidal thoughts, but it could very well have led to that particular thing. And so there was a wide array of different things that, had there been a proper support structure in place, that we would have been able to probably shorten the time frame that the PTSD was a part of my life. I'm at a place now where I can take the experiences that I had dealing with PTSD, and I can help others navigate through post-traumatic stress. And what I'm finding is that I'm able to now recognize when that's happening in other people's lives, and I create that safe place for them to share or tell their story as part of their healing process. So there's, that part. And then from the PTSD, then it evolved from there to dealing with the various types of grief, and where the reason or how that came to be.
So you're writing your book, but this one wasn't a bunch of blogs. This was more than that.
Yeah, it was doing some research, but it was also it's a large percentage of it is my story, and so dealing with PTSD, and then just very lightly touching on the grief part, because the book was published 2021, and I believe that Deborah passed in February of 2021. So I wasn't able to capture in You Are Not Alone the full spectrum, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words, the full spectrum of grief and capture it in You Are Not Alone. But I do have it captured in the book that I'm in the editing process right now.
Okay, so you have a new book coming out soon.
Yes.
When do you expect to release that, this year or next year?
Oh, I'm going to say that it will probably be, I'm hoping this year, but I'm thinking that we're probably looking at early next year. And if I go with early next year, that's actually when You Are Not Alone was released, so they would be about a year apart.
Okay, so you're writing this book, which means you're sitting there typing things out and doing your research and coming back here and editing and asking people to look at things, saying, you know, how does this sound to you? I'm sure that's a standard process we all go through.
Yeah.
What is the most difficult part of this writing of a book that you've found so far? What seems to be the critical part?
You know, sorry?
I said the part you don't want to do, but you have to do.
So, you know, what I found is going through I've done a number of edits, and what I found is that as I go through edit process or after edit process, that it became overwhelming, and it caused or generated, however you want to describe it, but a number of triggers where I ended up reliving a lot of the experiences that I had, which I've, you know, captured in the book. But at the time where I'm going through and supposed to be looking at the content and how it's structured and all those sorts of things, I found that it became overwhelming, and I wasn't able to focus. And at one time point, I ended up having to do a bit of a personal retreat of my own, where I went away, rented a place to live or stay. And it was with the idea or the intent in mind of being able to, it was like I had locked my mind, my storytelling ability, I had locked it up, and I couldn't advance with the editing process or adding any additional content until I got past that block. And so my advice or guidance to, you know, prospective authors is number one, you know, identify the purpose of the book, but more importantly, what you want to be able to do is have the mechanism in place to unlock any of those blockages that you may experience, so that you can stay moving forward rather than sort of sitting and not going anywhere.
It's interesting. Yesterday I was looking on Facebook, and there was some hints or notes or whatever you want to call it from Hemingway. It says, and one of the ones that I took away that really I think is apropos to our story today, because it said, never finish a story, always leave a story so that when you come back to it, you can continue writing. If you finish a story, you're done. But if you know what the follow-on is, you come back the next day and you pick it up and you already know where you're going. And I was thinking, you know, a lot of times I write something and I'm right there at the end. Okay, I know there's something else, but I don't know what it is. But I think in retrospect, if I had said, let me finish this tomorrow, and now that allows my brain to kind of spend the night with other things. But I think your idea of, you know, if there's personal involvement because of what you're writing brings back horror stories or trauma or stress or whatever, and you need to get away from your familiar surroundings in order to kind of adjust out of that environment that you're in, that might be a very wise thing to do. So depending on what the nature of your book is, particularly if you're dealing with something with PTSD, stress, trauma, grief, there's a lot of things there. If there's personal stories, I am sure that they're just going to sit there and just ping off the walls periodically, because you live that, and now all of a sudden it's coming back, and as you use the word, it triggers additional flare-ups of those emotional things. Mental health, that's another area that I believe you have a little bit of experience in, what I see in some of my reading. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that.
The mental health part, my involvement came as a result of obviously dealing with the PTSD and the spin-offs from that, and such that I ended up going for counseling myself to deal with some issues as a result of Deborah's passing, and that I was approaching it as the typical male with a huge ego that said that I don't need professional help, I can deal with this on my own, when in fact I did need professional help, and I was able to fortunately end up finding and working with an absolutely brilliant lady who helped me get out of that funk of the mental health space, where I was going to try and fix it myself, and I needed her assistance to be able to do that. I today am involved in a number of different programs. I'm involved in a bereavement grief type program where, we sometimes deal with people who are struggling with mental health. I'm also doing some work, and one of the messages I got from a client this morning was very much mental health related, in that this individual shared her story, which was very much, very heavily leaning towards struggling with her healing journey and all of those sorts of things that I'm immersed in that. So I'm working with a number of people, probably 14 or 15 that I can think of, that I'm working with them to help them navigate, or more importantly, to be able to continue on their healing journey. I do that by creating a safe place for them to talk about what it is that they're dealing with. And I found that if we're able to help individuals talk their way through what it is they're experiencing, that sometimes can be the help or the assistance that they need.
I think you also help military transition back into civilian life. Is that true?
Yes, with American corporate partners in the United States, I mentor individuals who are transitioning from military life to civilian life, and a lot of them will sometimes have PTSD that they're dealing, that was what they ended up coming back home from being deployed. They came back home with PTSD hanging over their head and having to deal with that. And so for some, it has been a bit of an eye opener. They struggle making the transition from military life to civilian life, and their triggers are a lot more than what I experienced myself with my PTSD. Yeah,
I've had a few people lecture on that, what they've gone through, and it's the triggers that you mentioned are not things that you necessarily expect, but some are expected, but some are not. But anyway, we're getting here toward the end of the show. Is there anything that you wanted to get out that I didn't ask you today?
The only thing is that for our listening audience today is that don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out and say, I need help. I know that I didn't, and it took a lot longer for me to begin the healing journey than what it should have. And so, find somebody who is a good listener and who isn't there to pass judgment. And so I'm kind of weaving us towards the mentoring solution, but is, find yourself a good mentor who is going to listen and hear and be confidential and create that safe place and all of those things, rather than you trying to hang on to that and figure you're going to deal with it on your own. Because to be honest, having been there, we can't always do it justice.
I believe you're absolutely correct, because sometimes there are things we cannot do ourselves. So anyway, you have a couple books. You have The Gift of Mentoring and You Are Not Alone. How do people find them?
So they're both available on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. And you can, if you go to my website, which is www.talentc.ca, you'll find there should be a link there on the website to take you to the book, or the books, sorry.
And how do people get in contact you if they want to hire you as a speaker?
They can go straight to me by email. That's probably the best bet. And that's Doug.Lawrence, Lawrence, at TalentC. So the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca. And I'll get back to you as quickly as I possibly can.
And your website is talentc.ca. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Doug, we're getting here to the end of the program, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to sign off, let people know what's coming up. I really and truly appreciate it. When you have your next book done, please get in touch with us so we can continue this conversation. And if something else amazing comes up in your life, I would love to have you on one of the shows. So really good seeing you again.
Yeah.
And thank you so very much for your time today. I really and truly appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to share the story once again.
Take care, Doug. Appreciate it. Okay, very shortly here in the next 20 minutes or so, we're going into another program on the USA Global TV and Radio Network called The Wise Ones. And Kate Riss, or ISSE, I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but I'll find out before we start the show, is my guest today. She is a professor at Tufts University, involved in a lot of things. I think it'd be a very, very good show. And right after that show, an hour and 20 minutes from now, the show Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network will be mine also. And we've been talking about how to help new authors get their books written. And what I want to cover today is competitor analysis. Who else has a book out there in your field? What do you offer that they don't? Those kinds of things. So that's what I want to do later today. Please join me here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, and we will catch you on the Corner Bookstore next month, September. But the Wise Ones and Talking Heads is every week. So take care, you all, and we'll catch you next week. Bye now.
This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes, building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience, and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium, I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, BSc.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we have evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Start your career and elevate your success today.